Master Chief from Halo versus the Mandalorian from Star Wars. Across the stars, wars create legends. Some built for war, trained from childhood and beyond human limits, made to be living weapons capable of turning the tides of entire galactic conflicts. Others choose the life, bound by their own tradition, armed with weapons earned through countless battles and driven by a code that is survived by generations of warriors. They wear these armors and are feared throughout their respective galaxies. They carry enough firepower to take on entire armies, and they become symbols of hope for people who stand against them. One is the last hope for humanity against impossible odds, the other is a lone fighter whose journey transformed him into a legend. Both have crossed battlefields with impossible enemies, protected their future of their people, and have proven underneath the armor lies not only the heart of a warrior, but the heart of a true person underneath their stoicness to form genuine connection. But within these icons of science fiction, warfares collide, and we are here to see which champion will emerge when we ask the question, who would win? Humanity in the modern day is usually considered to be the apex of the planet, the peak of evolution, at least as far as we know. However, we never really will ever know that for sure. There could be something out there, something that could threaten us. And in the distant 26th century, this threat was brought to light, as a group known as the Covenant. A group of aliens of many different varieties, all with the main goal of eradicating humanity, and humanity's response to this threat was to make a program that could make the ultimate super soldier to defend humanity, called the Spartan II program, calling these soldiers, fittingly, Spartans. With this program basically creating the pinnacle of humanity's firepower to fight back against these alien invaders. But out of all of these soldiers that were a part of this program, one stood out as a prodigy. There was an individual known simply as John 117, particularly selected for his natural incredible strength and energy even at a young age. With him being forcibly taken from his home and trained, and eventually going through an experimental procedure that most of his other comrades didn't even survive. But the procedure made him stronger, faster, and more aware, beyond any normal human limitation, which eventually turned him into a Spartan and earned the title of Master Chief. And with this new title and power, he got a massive kit of arsenals to whoop a lot of alien ass. From assault rifles to pistols to sniper rifles and shotguns, all seemingly more enhanced than what we have in the modern day, along with rocket launchers that can lock on to enemies close by, a giant laser cannon known as the Spartan Laser, a laser powerful enough to blow up entire tanks. And even from the enemy Covenant side, he's used plenty of weaponry, including plasma pistols, storm rifles, homing needlers that explode on contact, along with a variety of grenades, and so much more. Over 130 weapons over his entire journey, and some are really powerful, like the Saw, which is one of the most deadly versions of the assault rifle variety, along with a railgun, a concussion rifle, a fuel rod cannon, and if he ever wants to fight up close, he can use weapons like the Energy Blade, a potent weapon that can cut through many different energy fields with ease, the Gravity Hammer, an incredibly powerful weapon that can release a concussive force on impact. But if he wants to get a little bit ridiculous, he can use a golf club called the Seven Wood to achieve a similar effect. But what might arguably be the best weapons he's gotten over his journey are the weapons he obtained from the race known as the Forerunners, that have technology with weapons that fire out ionized particles that disintegrate targets on hit, with many different varieties like pistols and rifles and shotguns that all achieve a very similar effect. But the most powerful is known as the Incineration Cannon. The effect of this weapon is an obvious name, but it fires a very powerful blast of energy that destroys most targets in a single hit. But even despite this massive toolkit, Jeev has a variety of add-ons that come incorporated in his armor known as the Mjolnir, an armor that already increases his ridiculous superhuman strength, speed, and perception, and giving him the ability to use thrusters, create energy barriers to take attacks easier, and he can even heal in combat using medical biofoam. And if for some reason he can't take this damage, he always has his backup technology from the Forerunners, like the hard light shields, which give him an even better defense boost, and his armor can even allow him to do a couple other things with some add-ons. with him being able to activate a mode for a short period of time that can range in a variety of effects, like turn invisible, give him speed boosts, and even turn completely invincible, all of which for around 10 seconds. But even with all of this, it's still not done, because Chief has an AI assistant known as Cortana, or at least the now version known as the Weapon, after Cortana went on her little evil arc. But this extremely advanced AI is one of the smartest in the business, and can hack other AIs, process enemy locations, and even oversee entire wars and create strategies against other opponents. As you can tell, Chief is an absolutely strapped opponent, but he doesn't just have a massive arsenal, but he has a lot of power behind him. Spartans are naturally very physically strong, being very much superhuman, and this is before even putting on the Mjolnir armor. And Chief is kind of the pinnacle of most Spartans, even being able to outmatch others of his kind that are also very skilled very easily, with Spartans easily being able to break alien necks, destroy boulders, and flip entire vehicles like coins, like 66-ton tanks and 200-ton machines like the Elephant. And he can overpower other Spartans whose armor can survive falling from the other atmosphere back down to the ground level of a planet, which can reach around 4 tons of TNT, with hard light shields giving them even a bigger massive boost to this than there was before. And Chief even has weapons like rocket launchers and laser weapons, like specifically the Spartan laser, which can actually destroy entire tanks with ease. And Spartan armor detonation, if it needs to self-destruct, can reach around 160 tons of TNT. But the most powerful weapon that the Spartans has is, again, the one from the Forerunners, being the incineration cannon, with this thing's disintegration rate potentially reaching around 798 kilotons of TNT, enough energy to theoretically annihilate a large town. With these hard light shield constructs theoretically even able to take this type of damage and even more, because with a bit of setup, a hard light shield can take an entire nuclear reactor that destroyed a ship at around 30 megatons of TNT. And if you thought he was just strong, Chief is also pretty fast, with him obviously being much faster than any normal person, and his travel speed alone can be measured around 66 miles per hour. But in terms of reaction feats, he's been able to react to bullets and missiles at subsonic speeds, and at their theoretical best, they can even theoretically react to long-distance fired lasers, if they are prepared beforehand, putting their top speeds at around the relativistic ranges. But even with all this badassery behind him, and with humanity creating Spartans to win a war, John was something far greater. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a symbol. No matter how impossible the odds were, humanity would never stop fighting. And with a bit of luck, and John certainly had plenty of that going over his journey, and with a bit of connection, John proved while he felt more machine, there still truly was a man beneath all that armor. But he still has the heart of a warrior. And once you know he gets started, he's going to make sure he finishes his mission. Long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, existed a vast cosmos filled with many different planets and races of massive varieties, each of them having their own cultures and living styles. Some were more civilized and advanced, others were more savage and unpredictable, but there was a system that brought peace, known as the Jedi. Individuals of good who practice their art and intricate styles of fighting in order to protect the galaxy from threats. However, where there is good, there is always evil, and there was a system set up to specifically outdo the Jedi's way of life. And historically, there has been many threats and oppositions to the Jedi, from bounty hunters to planetary leaders to the exact opposing dark side version of the Jedi known as the Sith. There was almost never a time where the Jedi were ever free of conflict. However, one group of individuals decided that they were not going to just directly oppose the Jedi, but make a new order and society. One that wasn't just protected by the Jedi, one that could protect themselves, and counter any threat, including the Jedi themselves if they were ever tried to be stopped. This group of individuals were known as the Mandalorians. These individuals are highly trained, and ready for battle at all times. battles being a massive part of their culture, and the most skilled and trained warriors in combat got considered to be their leaders. And even when most of them got wiped out by the Empire, sections remained and spread their ways, and one stood out. And he came from a background of tragedy. As a kid known as Din Djarin, was unfortunately orphaned when his parents were unfortunately killed by separatist droids. But he was eventually found by a Mandalorian tribe, after being taken in as a foundling and raised in the ways of the Creed, and fully embracing their combat and taking it vows to never reveal himself or make himself vulnerable in front of an enemy, he eventually became a solo hunter, one that took several bounties, and was arguably one of the best at that job. But even with all this skill and prowess, and the promise to never make himself vulnerable in front of anyone, he ended up finding a new light that gave him meaning, as one day he met the young child, Baby Yoda, or otherwise known as Grogu. A new way of life, and protection, something he sought to keep, and finally allow for himself to be vulnerable with. But even with this new purpose, make no mistake, he is still very much a Mandalorian and has the arsenal to prove it, as Din was trained in a variety of different weapons, from lasers that include pistols and rifles, and a special known knife known as the Vibro Knife, specifically made for up-close assassinations and cutting through tough metals with ease, and exploiting fatal weaknesses, explosive weapons like whistling birds and even grenade launchers, with even some more potent bombs like this, like thermal detonators. And he can back this up with even more stuff like flamethrowers, wrist blasters, along with the fact he can pretty much adapt to pretty much any weapon he can get his hands on, especially melee. Anything from axes, spears, and swords. They're pretty much adept to using pretty much anything. But one of his peak long-range weapon in his arsenal is known as the Ambam rifle. This weapon vibrates the molecules of a target so much that it destroys pretty much anything it comes into contact with. Organic matter is completely disintegrated, and even non-organic matter is still affected by it, although to a lower extent, and even able to track sounds for long distances. However, when it comes to symbolizing importance, almost none of them are as meaningful as the Darksaber. The Darksaber is a specialized lightsaber, but the kyber crystal inside of it is adapted in the ways of the Mandalorian. Whoever had it was one of the most honored individuals in the Mandalorian society, and while he struggled with it at first, he soon managed to understand its worth and power. And with it, he could do anything a traditional lightsaber could do, like being able to cut through most things like butter, and being able to deflect energy attacks. But not even all of this makes the Mandalorian so impactful, because not only do they have great offense, but they have an even arguably better defense, with their armor being made of an extremely special metal known as Beskar. This stuff is pretty much damn near invincible, being able to shrug off blaster fire and lightsabers without any real damage to it at all, with the only real way to bypass it is to hit past the armor altogether or superheat the person inside of it. And the armor even includes a few potential extras, like thermal vision and a 360 radar which can see on basically all sides. And if you think that's insane, well, Din himself is quite a physically powerful force. He should be stronger than any normal human, and this is shown through the fact that not only can he hold back banthas, creatures that could potentially weigh up to around 4 tons, and he's able to go toe-to-toe with peak physical condition Hutts, which are basically like massively buff slugs, like Rhoda the Hutt, but he can also scale to other Mandalorians like Boba Fett who could crumple steel doors. And even with just the visual size alone, some of the bombs he can get, like his thermal detonators, can reach forces of around 3.9 tons of TNT. However, that's actually not the full extent of what Beskar can actually survive, because his armor, as we've stated, can survive blaster bolts and lightsabers. Lightsabers having a specific power source known as kyber crystals. And while these crystals might not appear like much, an entire kyber crystal cluster could power an entire fleet of planet-destroying ships. Even the tiniest fraction of these would cause catastrophic damage per hit. No wonder these things can cut through anything. And his weaponry should be even able to scale, especially the Darksaber, and pretty much every single other one, since lasers don't get automatically destroyed on contact by lightsaber hits. And in terms of speed, the Mandalorian should be easily at the peak of a person, and he should be able to react to his own jetpack flight, which can easily reach around 500 miles per hour. But he should be able to scale to other Jedi Masters, like Ahsoka, who is one of the fastest Jedi out there, with other Jedi being able to react to lightning and even being able to react to lasers. And even rookie fire pilots can dodge even faster lasers from the fleet, which are directly stated to be at around light speed, and Mandalorian is one of the best and fastest pilots out there. And this is incredibly consistent, since Jedi can easily outpace Magna Guards, who have speeds directly stated to be near light speed in reactions. And not only should Mando be scaling to these characters, but he could be potentially even faster himself, since he's actively caught them off guard in the middle of the fight. But in the end, within this galaxy filled with Jedi, Sith, and warriors seeking glory, Din Djarin stood as one of the ones that never fought for power. He fought for his people, his family, and promises he chose to keep. In a galaxy of legends, he has proved that even one lone bounty hunter can change the fate of the stars. As he would say, this is the way. Alright, now that we've gone over our two combatants, it's finally time to figure out between these two intergalactic warriors who's truly worthy of their title. But before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out for the person who was able to make this video something special in the first place, and the first ever animation you're about to see on the channel. Thank you, JHXM, for all of this. If you guys haven't seen his channel yet, I absolutely go over there after this video. He's got some fun videos and even greater stuff coming up in the future. I absolutely appreciate your commitment to this, and I hope you guys do as well. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's get to the fight and see who would win. Ooh, looks like this Spartan has been sent into mandatory retirement. Huh? Anyways, jokes aside, this fight was intense to say the least, and you might be surprised. Master Chief's reputation in his series far outclasses Mando's, and seems like he should have been the obvious winner. And frankly, this was kind of a shock. But surprisingly, the Mandalorian had everything he needed to finish this fight, but not without getting the fight for his life. This fight at its core really came down to 5 important categories: strength, experience, defense, offense, and speed. Starting with strength, this was kind of a no-brainer. Chief had the advantage here in spades. Din is nothing to scoff at. Potentially being able to hold back a 4-ton bantha and being able to crush steel doors is impressive, but this really meant nothing to someone like Chief, who could destroy boulders and flip 200-ton machines like they were coins. If it were to ever come down to a up-close hand-to-hand fight for too long, Chief would absolutely decimate the Mandalorian, meaning he absolutely takes the category in terms of physicality. However, when it comes to experience, this gets a lot more difficult to decide. Both of these two have been basically working at the top tier of soldiers and training since an incredibly young age. Both have plenty of solo and group experience, with both of them extremely trained in all types of weaponry, and have proven time and time again they can use pretty much any weaponry they can get their hands on and learn to adapt with it on the fly. While the Mandalorian is a slight bit more experienced at fighting against characters who are physically tougher than he is, which would include a massive majority of characters in Star Wars. And don't get me wrong, Chief definitely has his moments for fighting against characters who are physically superior to him, but it's not to the same degree as Mando. But also due to the fact that Chief has generally used more weapons, and the fact it's so close regardless, and these advantages are so minute over the other, that honestly, even with them having some advantages in this category over the other, because this isn't ultimately the deciding category, is to call this category mostly a toss-up. But when it comes to their defense, this is where things get really interesting. Both of these two are known for their massive defense when it comes to their armors. Mjolnir armor can seemingly handle planetary entry at around 4 tons of TNT without being destroyed. But in comparison to Beskar, it's nowhere even close to the same durability. Beskar can take blows from lightsabers without any shown sign of destruction at all. And you might be wondering how powerful could these laser sticks be? Well, as we mentioned, lightsabers are powered by kyber crystals, with again a whole cluster of these things being able to charge an entire fleet of planetary destroying weaponry of the Final Order, with these weapons being comparable to the Death Star. And while weapons like lightsabers wouldn't be able to fully scale to the blast of these lasers, but using the same energy and potential yields, which can range into the Dwarf Star level yields, even if we downscaled this by 1 billionth, heck, even 1 trillionth, it would still be way more than anything the Mjolnir armor could actually be able to survive. However, there is a caveat to this. The Mandalorian Beskar, while might be way tougher and going to be way harder to get through than any of Chief's options, the thing is, it has exposable weak points, and it has been outdone by overheating or piercing through the gaps of the armor itself. And Chief has plenty of other options that can help him defensively, from hard light shields to even invincibility for a short period of time, along with the ability to heal himself if given enough period to do that. But this also doesn't discredit Mando either, since he is very good at making sure none of his weak points are hit even by accurate opponents, and is able to perfectly counter with his armor. So he's not going to make it easy for Chief in order to get through it. So this category for the most part is really close to the point where it's also kind of a toss-up, since it's about stronger armor with more weak points, but weaker armor with less weak points and other options to help you along with it. Overall, they're both too exploitable, but also still very much too good in the case of specifically defense to say one is over the other. So again, this category is a draw. But this changes when it comes to their offensive options. On the surface, Chief seems like he would easily take this advantage. I mean, he has a much larger arsenal that he has used over his career, with a much larger variety. There's no doubt that Chief is usually second to none when it comes to his arsenal, but this is more of a quantity versus quality type of deal. Because while Chief's best weaponry can either blow up tanks, and his most powerful incineration weapons, especially the incineration cannon, which can get around 798 kilotons of TNT, with this certainly being impressive, but surprisingly, Mando has actually got this beat. Visually, his explosives look way less impressive, but when you actually look into the context of what we're looking at, with even his basic weaponry being able to compete and hurt Jedi, along with the fact that he actually has very effective disintegration options himself, like the Ambam rifle, which is harming Chief no matter what, since while it's not going to immediately be able to touch the organic matter, it will still very much harm the Spartan armor regardless. But to figure out the power of Mando's kit, this all comes back to the Darksaber, which again is just as strong as a normal lightsaber and uses the same source, being the kyber crystals. Now, I've been kind of teasing it, but let's actually figure out exactly the specifics of how powerful a lightsaber actually is. Again, using the source of earlier of the Death Star and the Final Order that should be able to scale to it, which that kyber crystal cluster was being used for, which were able to blow up planets with dwarf star level yields. But even if we were to put this at the lowest end of planetary and massively lowball the destruction of these crystals, this would still be around 59 zetatons of TNT. And even if we were to say a lightsaber is a billionth to a trillionth the power with a massive lowball, the power of a lightsaber and what they can cut through would still be around 59 gigatons to 59 teratons of TNT. And remember, this is a low end. And even with this would still be around, at the very bare minimum, 79,000 times stronger than the incineration cannon, and 2,000 times more powerful than the best hardlight shield we've seen Master Chief use, and that was with setup. Mando's weaponry is very easily getting through any defense Chief has, and keep in mind, based on the fact that his lasers are not being destroyed on contact with lightsabers, it still means that these lasers would have to be ridiculously powerful themselves. And since Chief is hurt by very much similar things in the game, and these things would definitely be above those, yeah, there's no real reason to assume that even the simplest lasers would potentially be causing fatal damage to Chief if he is not careful enough. Even with Chief's greater strength advantage, it's not even going to help him up close, since again, Mando is used to fighting at a decent strength disadvantage, and his weapon would generally just be too powerful for Chief to even physically touch, especially with a fighter as skilled as Mando. And before you wonder, Cortana isn't really going to be doing anything here. Sure, she does shut down and hack other AIs, but none of that really falls under Mando's kit. Cortana doesn't really shut down general weaponry or anything, and she wasn't even able to do this to other technological weapons similar to Star Wars weapons in her own series. There's no real reason to assume she would be able to just hack Mando's weaponry. And even Mandalorian tech itself has actually outright resisted any attempts to malfunction it before. Meaning, Cortana, as useful as she is, and might be able to give Chief a bit of a clue in on weapons and strategies, but other than that, she is not exactly going to be that helpful here in a fight. And in a fight without preparation beforehand, she's especially not going to be the most reliable here. So as a whole, as insane as this might sound, Mando actually takes this category. But just because you have a more powerful arsenal doesn't mean that you win automatically, because both of these characters have the arsenals to kill the other. Remember, Mando's armor, even as impressive as it is, has explicit weak points and has been exploited before, and Chief is accurate enough and has powerful enough weaponry that definitely would be able to kill him in the right circumstances, and Mando could do the same in return. So the most important thing to actually figure out in a fight like this, who actually can get their options off most effectively and first. This is where it comes down to speed. Both of these characters are at the peak of human performance, and even beyond that. And while Chief certainly has the advantage on foot, being able to travel up to 66 miles per hour, compared to Mando, who doesn't really have anything close to that in terms of direct running speed. However, when it comes to reactionary and combat, this is a completely different story. Chief is certainly no slouch, being able to react to bullets and rockets pretty casually, and even in theory being able to dodge straight-up lasers. However, not only is the context behind these mostly through being able to see the rifle being pointed at them first and then dodging, especially given the context of most of these feats, but even giving them this, most of the time they're done from farther distances than what the Jedi and Mandalorians can scale to, and nowhere near as consistent. And even giving Chief this, it really doesn't matter. Not only has Mando shown he can react to lasers on several different occasions, but he also scales to characters who are faster than the near light speed reflexed Magna Guards, but can scale to even lesser pilots than himself, which can react to other light speed lasers, and can even catch the best of the Star Wars series in terms of speed off guard. Meaning pretty much anything the Spartans have shown in the series, Mando has provably upscaled it by a decent amount, and arguably just too much for Chief to compete with. Even if Chief is usually superior to other Spartans, it's never been to an insane degree, and he's always been comparable to them. And keep in mind, these are Chief's best interpretations for speed compared to Mando, who is doing this way more consistently and at higher ends, with more impressive laser dodging and confirmed statements. Even with Chief having a speed boost, it's still not going to help him in the end, since the speed boost has never been to such a significant degree that it would be able to keep up, and even if it did, it's only for a few seconds, and it really runs the risk of Chief not being able to use some of his other weaponry or add-ons. So regardless, in a up-close or far-away confrontation, Mando is always going to be the first one to adapt, making Chief's much greater strength, while incredibly impressive and is certainly threatening, but Mando is almost always going to be able to capitalize on his advantages first, and get himself out of disadvantages easier than the other way around. He ultimately has the better quick draw at both a close and far range, and in the end, he is going to be taking this final advantage. This fight was certainly unexpected, but even with this Spartan certainly proving he was worth his rank, his path ended here, because in most scenarios, this was the way the fight would go. And Din Djarin definitely shown he was truly the Mandalorian. Let's just hope he finds a good way back to Grogu in the end. So, as a whole, the Mandalorian wins. Hey guys, I want to thank you all so much for this. This video was a huge passion project of mine, and I wanted to make something really special. Regardless if you agree with me or not, I'm still grateful for all of you who come to watch my content, and again, I need to give a huge shout out to JHXM for really making this video stand out. And again, please check out his channel if you haven't already. While I wouldn't go expecting every video to be as detailed as something like this in the future, I do plan to have more content like this, and I do plan to make more videos collaborating in the future. And I have way more surprises in the future for you guys in general. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace.